Once again, let me remind you guys regarding naming carbonyl compounds such as like aldehydes and ketones, we've already discussed. And today mostly we focus on physical properties of carbonyl compounds such as aldehydes and ketones. So once again, let me give a striking difference between an aldehyde and ketone. Both aldehydes and ketone will have this SIBO as a functional group. So this generally we can call carbonyl group. Okay. Then the other two, like the tetravalency of carbon, suppose if the other two, if one of them is hydrogen, then it is an aldehyde. This can be any alkyl group. It can be methyl, it can be ethyl, a propyl, a butyl, or can be. And the other group, which is attached to a carbonyl carbon, if it is hydrogen, it is an aldehyde. If it is an alkyl group, maybe so-called if it is an alkyl group like how can I say, like methyl, ethyl, or propyl, then it is a ketone. Okay, it sometimes both alkyl groups can be same, no issues, or they can be different. But if this hydrogen is replaced by one of the alkyl group, then it's gonna be a ketone. But in turn, aldehydes and ketones have a common functional group, that is carbonyl group. Okay, this is what we were talking yesterday. Am I clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So naming aldehydes and ketones, yesterday I already told you, just an alkane. The E is substituted by Al in case of alkane, sorry, in case of aldehydes, and ONEs are E substituted by ONE in case of ketones. Okay, even you wrote these structures. This is Aisha, this is an aldehyde or a ketone? Miss Aisha. Aisha, are you with us? Aisha.
Sir, is
Yes,
this
sir.
ketone
Yeah, it's ketone. So this is
Yeah,
because
whole
it
this
thing
is
is
says
our group.
the
naming
ketone.
ketone?
This is another group. So this is a ketone. Okay. So naming ketones again,
Oh,
the matter is like you need to like if carbons in a ketone group is more than five or more than five, then numbering matters. Okay. So you can start numbering from here. From here, if you just start numbering, here this carbonyl carbon will get higher numbers, so better to give from this side. So this is 1, this is 2, then third carbon, so 3, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 hexanone is the name of this compound. Yes or no? 3 hexa. Generally, if there is no carbonyl group, it is hexane. Okay, so but the E is replaced by ONE, so 3 hexanone is the name of this compound. And this is how you just we give now we name ketones. Any questions on this? You did some questions on
no,
this,
sir.
yes? Okay. See this propanone, butanone, methyl pentane. So if other groups are present, so first you give, I mean, as a subscript. I mean, in the starting, you will give that group number as well as what is the group present. Then you can end the name of the compound with ONE. Here, for example, this compound has now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 carbons are there. So you have to start numbering in such a way that these, I mean, the compounds which are having these functional groups, or the carbons which are having functional groups, should get the least number. So from here, if I start, so 1, 2, 3. I can also start numbering from here. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3 and 4, 5. But You need to think all the time, least some rule, you know. Okay. So from here, if I start numbering, this is 1, this is 2, means on the second and third carbon, you have functional groups. So 2 plus 3 is 5. If I start numbering from the right side, here 1, 2, 3, and 4. So on the third and fourth, there are functional groups. So hence are there substituents. So hence this is not preferred. Numbering from right side is not preferred. So you can start numbering from left side. So when you start numbering from left side and third carbon, you have a methyl group. So 3 methyl, the whole the length of the chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 3 methyl pentanone. Okay. So thus numbering from the side, from right or from the right side or left side, you are giving numbering. That also matters if more than one substituent or functional group is present. Am I clear with this? So this already we discussed yesterday. So now this is the topic where I stopped yesterday. Bonding in carbonyl compounds. So what kind of bonding is present and why there is a polarity in carbonyl compounds? Everything was explained in this slide. If you guys have any questions, you can raise your hand. I'll explain. If not, read for 1 or 2 minutes. Then let us proceed further. Hello, Gaby, Nadali, any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. So please do remember there is a pi bond and there is a sigma bond in between the carbon and oxygen. There is a pi bond as well as there is a sigma bond. So sigma bond end on end overlap and pi bond sideway overlap. Am I clear with this? Hello?
Sir, how many pi bond and how many sigma bonds are there between
In
carbon
this.
and oxygen?
So in this there is one pi bond and one sigma bond. Double bond,
Only
right?
one. Yeah, okay.
So blindly you can, I'll give some hints here. So whenever you have multiple bonds, multiple covalent bonds, whatever, irrespective of the compound, one will be sigma, then other will be phi. Okay. For example, in this case, also there are two bonds. So one will be sigma and other will be pi bond. Okay. Irrespective of the type of the compound. Suppose if you have three bonds, for example, you have something like this, a bonding in nitrogen molecule. So now, see, I'm not considering anything. See, among these all three covalent bonds, one will be sigma, then remaining all, the remaining will be pi. Okay. So irrespective of like type of the compound, you can directly say the type, number of bonds. We did some objective type questions on this. Gaby, we did this, right? Gabriel? So we used to solve some questions, number of sigma and pi bonds present in, for example, you have yes or no, some objective questions, you made mistakes like, so for example, if there is a question like how many sigma and pi bonds are present in C2H4, can you say, Usman? How many sigma and pi bonds are present in C2H4?
Sir, 1 sigma and 5 pi bonds.
One sigma? Are you sure?
5. No, 1 pi bond and 5 sigma.
Yeah, thus you need to analyze this. Okay. Or else you write a displayed formula for a given compound, then there you are able to get the number of bonds. But among where there is a multiple bond, one will be sigma and the remaining pi. Okay. Remaining pi in the sense, but that you are taking only a place where there is a multiple bond. So in this case, if I write like a displayed formula for this compound, I just write like C double bond C. Am I clear? There is an hydrogen, hydrogen here, hydrogen over here. So total, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are not considering any, only one bond is there. So the first bond is sigma. Okay, but here you have, there is a multiple covalent bond. So one will be sigma, then other will be pi. So Now this 1 pi bond, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sigma bonds. Am I clear? So this bonding also important, and because of electronegativity difference between this carbon and oxygen. Am I clear? Because of the electronegativity difference between this carbon and oxygen, there exists polarity. Okay. Now let us talk on physical properties of carbonyl compounds. See, one of the fascinating factor or fact is these bonds, I mean these carbonyl compounds, they do not have any internal hydrogen bonding, but when you add them to the water, they have hydrogen, they form or they make hydrogen bonds. Okay, remember. So in liquid aldehydes and ketones, there are weak intermolecular attractions between partially positive charge of carbon of one molecule and partially negative charge of the carbonyl oxygen of another molecule. So there is a small, a little force of attraction, but there is no hydrogen bonding in pure carbonyl compounds. Please do remember. Okay, most of the time we may get confused because there is an oxygen. We guys may think there is an oxygen, so this oxygen and this hydrogen may have, but this hydrogen is not attached to the oxygen. Am I clear? So see, no hydrogen is attached to oxygen in carbonyl compound. So if it is not attaching to an oxygen or any of the electronegative element, like we consider only nitrogen, oxygen, and things. So what is the other thing? We consider fluorine. Okay, so there is no polarity on this hydrogen. So if there is no polarity, there is no attraction. But there will be a slight attraction between this carbon atom and this oxygen, but not hydrogen bonding over here. Okay, please remember. No hydrogen bonding is possible between aldehydes or ketone molecules. Okay, am I clear with this? And because of this, because of the absence of hydrogen bonding, these aldehydes and ketones will have lower boiling points when compared with alcohols, carboxylic acids, even water, as there is hydrogen bonding in those molecules or in those compounds. Usman, Aisha, Gabriel, and Nadali. Am I clear with my explanation, Kitty?
Yes, sir.
You can read this. You make a note. I'm not getting any notes from anyone. Sometimes, rarely I get some notes from Gabriel, but I'm not getting anything from you all. Okay, aldehydes and ketones have lower boiling points than alcohols and carboxylic acids. Okay, because compounds in which there is, yeah, you can read
There's
it.
no hydrogen bond.
Yeah. So whereas in case of alcohols and carboxylic acids, there is an hydrogen bonding. Yes or no? So you need not see the table and other things. I think I'm clear with the physical properties, like that is the boiling points. Okay. Then next, let us talk on solubility. So solubility in water. So, but when you dissolve them in water, they form an hydrogen bond. So solubility, the lower hydrocarbons are fairly soluble. Hello. The lower hydrocarbons are carbonyl compounds are fairly soluble, but with the increase of like the complexity, or with the increase of higher carbonyl compounds, where the complexity or the length of the carbon, how can I say, the length of the carbon chain increases, so the solubility decreases with increase of carbon chain or in higher carbonyl compounds. Okay. So please here I wrote. The solubility of aldehydes and ketones decreases with increasing chain length as the hydrocarbon part of the molecule becomes more significant. What do you mean by this sentence? Gaby, can you explain? Am I clear? So remember, they're soluble. The lower carbonyl compounds are soluble in water due to formation of hydrogen bonding. Okay, this is an hydrogen bonding because in the water. Now one of the hydrogen is attached to, this is oxygen, to oxygen. Now this hydrogen has a partial positive charge over here. This is an hydrogen because of the presence of this partial positive charge, and you have an oxygen of, this is the oxygen of carbonyl compound. So now which has partial negative charge. So because of this partial positive and negative charges, they develops an attraction, but in this case hydrogen is involved, so hence hydrogen bonding is present when carbonyl compounds like aldehydes or ketones are dissolved in water. That's clear. Hello, any questions on this?
No, sir.
And what do you mean by this, Nathalie? The solubility of
Sir,
aldehydes and ketones. Yeah, please.
the solubility of aldehydes and ketones decrease with increasing chain lengths as the... Sir, can you remove? I think it's oxygen,
This thing.
hydrogen carbon part of the
As,
molecule becomes more significant.
yeah,
So
what do you
when
mean?
the length of a chain of a hydrogen carbon part increases, it becomes less soluble.
Yeah, so because the length is increasing, so now you know hydrocarbons, they are not, they are water repellent, I can say. Hydrocarbon, they don't dissolve in water. Like, do petrol dissolve in water? Hello, petrol or kerosene or diesel, they do not dissolve. So that's the reason oil spills, some ships, and the contamination of oceans, this all things happen. So hydrocarbon part, the length of the hydrocarbon part increases, then solubility decreases. Okay, for example, you have simply an acetaldehyde, let me write. So solubility, a question, if a question comes on solubility, you have an acetaldehyde. Okay, this is your acetaldehyde. Then I can say like, I just told a common name. You can also write this is, how many carbons? 2 carbons are there. You can say this is ethanol and methanol is given. Okay, then a question may be asked which arrange the following in increasing or decreasing order of boiling points. This is your ethanol. Can somebody tell me the formula for methanol? Methanol I'm talking about.
CH3 formula,
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah, found. I see. I wrote ethanol for you. I want methanol or formaldehyde, I can say. Common name is formaldehyde. Just I'm asking you guys about methanol. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Just use one carbon. The other rules are same. It should have the carbonyl compounds. Okay, this is carbonyl group. And methanol means already one carbon has come, so you are not using any further carbon, so then the remaining 2 bonds are with the hydrogen. So this is your methanol. So now my question is, among ethanol and methanol, which has which easily soluble, or which has higher boiling points?
Methanol is
Yeah, easily soluble. Whereas when compared with ethanol, propanol, butanol, those suppose methanol, ethanol, propanol, butanol is given, so methanol is highly soluble or will have lower boiling points when compared with the propanol or butanol. Am I clear now? Okay. So may I proceed further?
yes, sir.
Okay. Now redox reactions of carbonyl compounds. So this is a topic of discussion today. So can you read the learning objective, Aisha? Hello. Aisha. Oh, she went
Yes,
somewhere.
sir.
Would you please
Yeah,
read it?
yes, sir. Um, redox reactions of carbonyl compounds. Learning objective. Understand the reactions of carbonyl compounds with valence of Benedict solution, Tollens reagent, and acidified dichromate
Ion. Okay.
ion.
Ion, you can say, just it's dichromate ion, acidified dichromate ion. So let us see the reactions of carbonyl compounds with this. But before that, what is this Fehling's? See, this is a very new thing for you. Fehling's, Benedict's, and Tollens reagent. Whereas acidified potassium dichromate, this is acidified dichromate is nothing but this is K2Cr2O7. This already we dealt with. K2Cr2O7. Okay. Just dichromate is there are two chromine. You remove this, then you will get -2 charge here. So this is your dichromate ion. Okay. So, but the very new things you need to understand at this point of time is Fehling's, Benedict's, and Tollens reagents. So these all Fehling's, Benedict's, and Tollens reagent. These are the reagents which are useful to distinguish between aldehydes and ketones. Okay, the more details of this I'll discuss in further slides over here. Okay, now let's start our discussion. So have you ever heard of this Fehling solution before, or Benedict solution in any book? In IGCSE, they did not ask any questions. Hello?
Is it similar to Benedict's reagent?
Yeah, Benedict's Fehling's or Benedict's, it is almost same, but there is a slight difference. Almost same. So Fehling solution is it's a mixture of generally copper sulfate, aqueous solution, copper sulfate, and some potassium or sodium citrates dissolved in NaOH. So okay, I have all details, you need not worry. Here key vocabulary, Fehling's, Benedict's, and all. Only we are talking on these three reagents today. Then we'll wind up our discussion. Okay. Here the Fehling's. So Fehling solution is like it is a complex mixture. You have Fehling's A solution containing copper 2 sulfate in water, which is blue color already you know. Then Fehling B is a clear liquid consisting of potassium or sodium tartarate. Common name is it's Rochelle salt. And this salt is dissolved in strong alkali, mostly sodium hydroxide. So now before you perform the reaction, suppose before you are performing a test in a lab, we mix these both solutions, copper sulfate and this sodium tartarate dissolved in sodium hydroxide. This we can call Fehling's A and Fehling's B. And before you perform the test, we readily make this. Then we add this to carbonyl compounds. Okay, it should not make this like we cannot store this for longer time, which is highly like unstable. So what we do is generally we make these things are ready. Fehling's A and Fehling's B will be ready in your laboratory, and before your testing, we mix these two together, and then we get Fehling solution. Am I clear? Then action of carbonyls on Fehling solution. So it reacts with only aldehydes, but not the ketone. So used to distinguish aldehydes from ketones. Please do remember. And you need not like worry about this complex. Like you need not worry. Just a question may be asked: Fehling solution and its action on carbonyl compounds. Okay, what actually happens? The reaction mechanism. These things are not. I mean, you need not remember. But for some competitive exams, this is very important. Okay, Fehling's A and Fehling's B we will have in the lab before you're doing an experiment or for identification tests. Then we mix these together, then you get Fehling solution. Then that Fehling solution or Fehling's reagent can be used to distinguish between aldehydes and ketones. Am I clear now? Then what actually happens? So these aldehydes will act as In this case, aldehydes will be oxidized in this case here. Aldehydes are oxidized in presence of alkali medium to carboxylic acid. So oxidation, if at all the oxidation reactions takes place, then the other thing must be reduced. Okay, that I will explain. This one, Benedict solution, a chemical reagent and a complex mixture of sodium carbonate, sodium citrate and copper sulfate pentahydrate. Here saying it is often used in place of failing solution to detect presence of reducing sugars. Okay, a carbohydrate is a reducing sugar. A carbohydrate like your glucose is a reducing sugar. So this is generally used in food testing. Okay, if some of the foods they claim that there is no carbohydrate at all, but by using this Benedict solution, you can claim, or you can say that you are using more carbohydrates which are not suggested in. Okay, if carbohydrate content or reducing sugar content is nothing, then you get there will not be any change. If traces of reducing sugars, your Benedict solution turns. This is the original color of Benedict solution. Turns bit green. Is it green? If it is moderate, then your solution turns orange. Then if there is a high content, then you can, I mean, the color turns like brick red. Okay. For example, you have like, what is the purpose of this? Suppose zero diet coke something. Have you heard of this? Zero diet coke?
Yes, sir.
So this diet coke, as per their criteria, there shouldn't be any sugars. I mean, there shouldn't be any carbohydrates. So that can be, that you can test. Just add some Benedicts. If it will not turn, then whatever the labeling they like they gave on that bottle, that's right. Means there are no reducing sugars or zero sugars over there. Okay, if it turns green, then okay, traces. If it turns orange red, then moderate. Then if it turns brick red, then large amount. So this, in testing the food samples or foodstuffs, we may use this Benedict solution. Am I clear? Hello? So both so-called failings as well as Benedict solutions are useful in order to differentiate between aldehydes and ketones. Please do remember. And both initially they are blue color only. Initially before you perform a test, but after when you perform the test, then the color change is same, but the chemical composition is different. Their action is almost same, but chemical composition is different. That's it. This is Tollens reagent. This is the last slide to be discussed today. Okay. So Tollens reagent. So this Tollens reagent will give a silver mirror test generally. Here you can see the silver mirror means it's not the mirror in the silver color. If you look at the back of the mirror, you will see a silver color coating. Yes or no? So Tollens test, a silver mirror test we can call. So in the laboratory, Tollens test may be used to distinguish between an aldehyde and ketone. So these all the reagents which I introduced today, all are useful to distinguish between aldehydes and ketones. Okay. This Tollens reagent is a solution of silver nitrate and ammonia. We also call this as ammonical silver nitrate. Okay. Oxidizes aldehydes but not the ketone. The silver ions reduced to metallic silver and which deposits on the sides of the test tube. This is your silver mirror, which forms a layer called silver mirror on the sides of the container. Okay, you need not worry about the mechanism, what's happening. Only your aldehyde, which is acting as a reducing sugar, will reduce. Will reduce means it has to be oxidized by itself. So will reduce silver to metallic silver. What is the oxidation number of silver in silver nitrate here? Hello? Oxidation number of silver in silver nitrate. Here you got it. It's given here. It's +1 Ag plus converts to Ag. What had happened here? Reduce in oxidation number or increase in oxidation number? What is the oxidation state of silver in this case? In metallic silver. Here it is +1. Here. What is the oxidation state in metallic silver? Are you there, guys? It's 0, right? Pure form is 0, right? Yeah, so 0. Somebody told this answer? Okay.
I said 0.
So, oh, sorry. It's feeble. I couldn't hear you. It is not audible range of frequency. Okay, fine. So 1 to 0. So means now the silver is reduced. Hence, your aldehyde is acting as a reducing agent. So it self oxidizes. Okay. So till here, please do make notes. Then further reactions of these aldehydes and ketones, I'll discuss maybe in tomorrow's class or day after tomorrow's class. Am I clear with this, Aisha, Nadali? Please, you guys need to practice these equations. Then only you can remember. Or else it's difficult for me at the end of the session or end of the year again to recollect. Okay. Learn in small chunks, dear. Learn in small small concepts, then it will be okay. By the end of the year you will have something on your brain. Anyhow, thank you for joining. I have other class to go. You may go now. Thank you so much. So there are 9 in this.
Bye, sir.
Kuzaima, I may leave the meeting, dear. Hello? Kuzaima, leave the